So I wanted to take a moment and discuss the Active Directory structure of how the automation is designed to work inside of your Active Directory. My goal is that this will answer several of your questions in the future that you can reference back to, or I can send it to new potential people who are wanting to onboard. So the automation is designed to put everything underneath in your Active Directory underneath the OU of students, because the automation is specifically designed for students. It doesn't mean it can't do some stuff with the faculty, because of course that information is in eSchool, some of it anyways, your certified people primarily, but it's focused on students and rostering and grouping them and moving them around and maintaining the life cycle of their account inside of your district. So anyways, under students, you have a lot of configuration options. So you can put them under grade levels here. You can put them under the graduation year. The one I recommend the most is the building and then the grade. And the reason for that being is that then you can apply a policy one time to a building level. You can apply it to students, all students. You can apply it to just the building level, or you can say, hey, ninth grade has this special thing and we need to apply it to that. And then next year, as students move into there, they automatically get it, and you don't have to go back year after year after year and remember to change these policies based on, well, as they age into them. So this is the structure I recommend the most. Anyways, under that, we have these groups. So we always have the students group, which is every single active student, and anybody who gets deactivated gets removed from that group. You have your students, then the building. So that is, like in my case, that's grades 9 through 12. So every student is in there. If they're deactivated, they are removed from the group. They lose privileged accesses from that group if it's on like a shared drive or you're applying a policy to it or anything like that. And then, the same for these. This is that specific grade, of course. And then that list goes on down. Of course, I've got a couple of testing ones down there. Nothing to see there. You've got if you have Google Apps Password Sync, or Google Password Sync, I think is what they call it now. This is the domain controller gaps, and we change the password on that and then verify it every single time the automation runs. That way we know that Google Password Sync is working on every domain controller, because it has to be on all of them, because you never know where the password change is actually going to happen at. So anyways, I wanted to show you about some of the new things that I've added to Active Directory and the automation runs. They are things that have to be turned on. You'll notice that this is basically your default view. The name here, most of us are used to that being just actually their name. However, from the very beginning, this has always changed over to be their actual email address, which is actually their user principal name, which has to be unique in the whole domain. But this name here has to be unique within each OU. Well, in the automation, we may move things all over the place no matter what. And I just kept running into conflicts of that name object in the same OU, especially when they go into the disabled OU eventually. So this is just the way it needed to be for a unique item there that's not considered confidential. But in order to see all of the attributes of a user and to change this view so we have a better view of it, you do want to go down and turn on advanced features. Advanced features lets you see the attribute editor. So let me go on down here. Show you what that gives you. So from here, that gives you the attribute editor tab, where you can scroll down and actually see the important item here, which is the employee number. Now I'm going to blur all this out, but the employee number is how we match to that student. So even if you rename this object, it doesn't matter what you actually do to it. You as long as you don't delete it. But if the employee number is on there, the automation on the next run will say, hey, I have an account for this, but the names don't match. So it's going to try to rename it back to what it was from eSchool. Azure AD Connect, if it had already had an association with an account in Azure, will also rename that. And in Google, if it already had an association to an account in Google, it will also rename that. So all of that stuff is tied together, and once you make one change in one directory, which is based off of eSchool, then everything follows it all the way down. But again, looking through this list, I know who that is. I think we all do. But if you go here to add and remove columns, there's a couple of really good columns here that I want to talk about. The company field being one of them. And if you go down to phonetic company name, let's add that. Let's add display name. No, actually, I can't do that right now because I'm not going to show all of these students' names. But you can add display name, which would be their full name. You can add, I add their email address typically. You can add their first name and you can add their last name. And then you can actually sort this entire list of students by that. I'm going to go ahead and add office. I like to be able to see when it was last modified and the user login. So when I hit OK, that adds all those columns and resets my view. Going back to 9th grade. Now back to the student. Now normally, like I said, you would have full name and first name and last name. I'm not going to do that for the sake of my kids. But in here, you'll notice under company, this field here, when enabled in your automation, is the last Google login for that user. The phonetic company name is the last Azure AD login for that user. So what this actually gives us is the ability to start cleaning up our local AD. Actually cleaning up all of our directories, and instead of having these suspended accounts sitting for the next decade, which I'm still finding, these actually give you more options to, I'll be developing more automation flows for this, but I'll be able to say, okay, where the last login on the local AD user was over 5 years ago, where the company field is over 5 years ago, which is from Google, where the phonetic company name is over 5 years ago, which is from Azure AD. When all three of those are at least 5 years old, and that's typically what I do as a default for districts, when they're over 5 years old, then we're just going to erase the account. And I also won't erase accounts unless you have AD recycle bin enabled. So I have a lot of built-in safety checks for that to try to protect from any of that lost data in that case. So anyways, that's a great way to be able to view that. And of course, right here, I can't see that this student is in 9th grade in this view at all, but it's pretty obvious because I have them in the 9th OU, and they come out of there when they're not. So that's a no-brainer. I know they're in GHS, but this office is GHS. You can basically ignore that and see, like, I've got this is a new student here, was created just yesterday, so never signed into either one of them, and the account's enabled. Now if I wanted to actually do some real cleanup, I've got a couple of miscellaneous accounts in here that I can do. So let me sort by company and get my nevers. So here are a few examples where these accounts have never signed in to either Google or Azure. And so in this case, I can actually just do a query and delete all of those easily. And so that makes that a lot easier to identify just by looking in AD. So if you're in your dashboard, I have a couple of new reports down here. Some are new, some are old, but unmanaged student accounts. So unmanaged student accounts are any student account that doesn't have a employee number. So like a lot of these are, like there's my Google Apps password. These are generic accounts, but I don't even have them enabled. They're just sitting there. I just wanted to make sure everything was on a report. These are enabled because these are fake students that I was making for a project. Testing a project. So anyways, this is a great way to identify whether or not you have miscellaneous accounts sitting around that maybe shouldn't be in your Active Directory. Another one that I've just added is this G Workspace accounts with no AD match, meaning that Well, actually, I was actually surprised at how many I had, but I had to do it for another campus. We all kind of have a few in here. I have actually quite a few, and I'm keeping them there for right now because I'm still testing with this. But in a true, actually, these predate the automation, so that's why they are still sitting around. And you can see that their last sign-in times being 2017, which is actually less than 5 years ago. I deleted another 100 of them out of here just the other day because they were over 5 years. But we can actually take this sheet and we can process it and delete all of those accounts just instantly. And so it's an easy way of being able to identify and find things that need dealt with. I think that actually kind of covers it. For the view changes in Active Directory and why, how you can see that to identify things for yourself. So anyways, I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about how the Active Directory structures that. And one more thing, P.S. If you do not like these student groups, these student groups are kind of a requirement of the automation. They're going to be built no matter what, but you don't have to be syncing them. If you want to, you can come in here and actually delete the email address off of it. There's no reason for them to be there. They don't have to be. And so that can actually remove the group or quit syncing it into Google or making it a email distribution list in Azure AD. But by default, that is there. If you want the actual graduation years, that is an option, and we can even take over existing graduation years if you'd like. There we go. And those are easily created and deleted anytime that you are looking to have that done. I just wanted to groups by graduation year. I had to remember what it was called. Anyway, so we'll let that run for just a second, and you'll see that I am going to end up with my groups. There they are. Just had to refresh a few times. So there I end up with those groups by graduation year. And if you go in here and you need to sync this to like Google, you could actually rename that to like say 2021 if that's how you were doing it before, and it would take over the group memberships for that. Anyways, I hope that helps you understand how all of this is structured. All right, have a great day.